open the law for 2026 officially, and please welcome. It's really a pleasure to welcome Universitätsprofessor Dr. Markus Müller from the Medical University of Vienna, a leading expert in clinical research, precision medicine and medical innovation. Today he will share insights into the latest developments in longevity science and how new research is shaping the future of healthier aging, preventive medicine and personalized healthcare. So please join me in welcoming Rektor der Wien Universitätsprofessor Dr. Markus Müller. So this is your microphone. Thanks for your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and good afternoon, everybody. As you heard, I'm an expert for everything, which I'm not. I'm president of a fairly huge university here and a huge university hospital, and we have many great colleagues who are dealing with various aspects of medicine. And I was asked to share a few thoughts about your topic, longevity, and I'm sure many of you here will actually know more than I do, probably. But this is what I would consider mainstream knowledge, what I will try to convey here. I didn't know that it's going to be in English, unfortunately, so there will be a mismatch between what I will be saying and my slides, but I think you will be able to manage. So we're living in interesting times. This is the Olympic gods. They are immortal, almighty, and they know everything. And it's an old myth of mankind that we try to become like the gods. You probably heard of the famous book Homo Deus by Yuval Harari, and I think there are many kind of tangents which touch this kind of old dream. And in our days, I think this is revived by AI, knowing about everything, and longevity is about being immortal, more or less, or the old dream. What is interesting to observe is here, this curve here. You see that virtually everywhere, globally, life expectancy has risen dramatically over the last 150 years, and more or less everywhere we're approaching like 80 years of age when it comes to life expectancy. What is very different worldwide is this gap here, which is also interesting. So irrespective of lifespan, there's this other term which is called health span, and you can here see different continents and gaps. And so most pronounced here in the United States and in Australia. So lifespan is much longer than health span, and in many countries this gap accounts for like decades, sometimes 2 or 3 decades of our life. So people are much older, but they are not that much more healthy for a very long time. How is Austria doing? If you check out here the Austrian rank in industrialized nations, you will see that in Austria, on average, men are considered healthy, so one could argue what that might mean, but anyhow, for 58 years. On top, more or less, recently is Sweden with 72 years, so there's a relevant gap in here. And even women, also very interesting, stay healthy a little longer, but it's just 59 years in Austria. So Austria, and that's the message, is not doing so well for a number of, we were talking about schnitzel or something, and also if you check out alcohol consumption or smoking, we're not doing that well. So it's about kind of lifestyle. What is also interesting, if you dug into this a little deeper from an epidemiological point of view, we'll see that even life expectancy in Austria by province differs markedly. So for instance, life expectancy in Vienna is 82 years, and in the Tyrol it's 84.7 years. So there's a 2-year gap in between east and west here in Austria. And even if you go deeper then, so like different areas here in Vienna, so districts in Vienna, you will see that if you're living in the first district here in der Stadt, average life expectancy of women is 83, and if you're living in Brigitte now, life expectancy is 80.
In der Landstraße bist du nur 81.
So much of this is about kind of lifestyle. It's a little bit about money also. So this is the curve if you check out life expectancy versus healthcare expenditure. But I think the threshold here is relatively low. You can see here, more or less here, which is an expectancy of like between $1,000 and $2,000 per capita. Expectancy rises significantly, and there's not much of a difference also. What is always very interesting, so the United States spends 18% of the GDP for health expenditures. Austria is like 13, the United States is the highest, and they have a relatively lower life expectancy. So money is not everything, obviously, in this game. You might have seen this curve here, which is health expenditure by age, and this is a huge problem for our healthcare system. That so the last years of our life are particularly expensive. There are good studies about what, this conference here is all about prevention also. That preventive measures, if you invest $6,000 whatever in prevention per quality adjusted life year, is the same as if you would invest 12,000 euros in curative interventions. Yeah, so it's cheap, it's clever just to do it. Obviously, we're living in a time of change, so we are changing here. We're coming in a new phase. It's very interesting because here in Vienna we had this. In the 19th century, there was this philosophy that in medicine actually that medicine is only about diagnosis, because people thought nature is overwhelming. There is no way how mankind could kind of cheat nature. And the 20th century has been all about kind of cheating nature, but in a therapeutic way. And now the new dogma is we want to stay healthy. So this is kind of making us more resilient, trying to be healthy and so on, which is called medicine 3.0. If you check out different regions of the world, there are interesting lessons one could learn. For instance, here there are, 5 so-called world blue zones, where people get very old. And so there are studies about those blue zones, and people are trying to find out, so what are the living conditions and so on. And what came out is similarities in 8 habits, which are here published in the AKEA study, for instance, and you can, this is in German, but anyhow, so there are usually 8 to 9 lifestyle factors. So and they're pretty obvious. So it's exercise, it's having a goal in life in general, so it's very kind of basic. It's certain limits to stress, yeah, not overstressed, but also not understressed. Bore out is obviously also not so good. Then we have the 80% rule, which is in those kind of blue zones. People don't eat until they are full, interestingly. They eat until 80% satisfaction, and then they stop it. It's a plant-rich diet. They drink moderately wine. And 7, 8, and 9 are kind of a social kind of bond. Yeah, so it's about love, having human interactions, and so on, which seems to be also very, very important. So this is something we learned about epidemiological studies, yeah, just from sites where people get relatively old. There's a very recent study that was published, I think, in 2024 or so, which comes out of a huge cohort study, the so-called Veterans Affairs study with more than 1 million participants. So that there was a cohort of people, veterans, who were kind of observed over many, many, many years. And what is interesting, what also came out, is that they are more or less the same 8 lifestyle factors that we already learned from the blue zones, which is be physically active, never smoke, manage stress, eat well, avoid drinking opiate, and then sleep. We'll come to that also. So it's pretty basic. Yeah? This is a study that was published last week, actually, in Nature, which is a very important journal, and which kind of caused a lot of stir, because it's also kind of something that is probably common knowledge. There is an optimum of sleep duration. It's a fantastic study, very powerful, and that you should sleep between 6 and 7 hours to stay healthy. To sleep less or more is not so good for your health. Interesting enough. Then there's this, so there are two components about longevity from a medical point of view. One is kind of prevention, and the second one is early diagnostic procedures, like screening programs and so on. There's also a very interesting observation here from a study that was heavily discussed about a number of kind of medical checkup interventions, from breast cancer screening to colorectal cancer screening, prostate, PSA testing, and so on. So pretty well-known interventions. And so the lifetime gain here with commonly used screening tests was calculated in a subset of 2 million patients. So it's kind of very relevant data sets. And what interestingly came out, that there's no evidence for any of those interventions that they kind of really prolong life. Yeah, very tough, except for colorectal cancer screening. Yeah. Now there's a big kind of industry evolving with a lot of business making, more or less useful products, mostly not so useful products. But there's, again, coming back to this old dream, the science of living long. So what I have discussed so far is just about kind of habits, living standards, and so on. But now you have also those tech billionaires who kind of want to become immortal. That's literally true. To console you if you're not in this club of billionaires. So here are the causes of death for billionaires, and they do not differ that much from non-billionaires. So it's a note of comfort so far. But there's a lot of also science about kind of the molecular basis of aging. So there's also this claim that aging is a kind of a disease. It's not a kind of a given. And we, just by understanding how this disease works, we will be able to overcome it. So I brought up a few books which I found interesting. This one, Lifespan, very well known. I'm sure many of you also read it. And it boils down kind of the molecular basis for aging. So you can see here that there are a number of kind of switches in our body, like telomeres, stem cell exhaustion, mitochondrial dysfunction, epigenetics, and so on. And the idea, or the dream, is that we will find switches we can kind of change or alter it. 12 so-called Methuselah genes have been identified so far. There's a lot of research going on about potential interventions on those genes. There is no breakthrough so far. There are many claims, and as I said, many products around which claim to have an effect, but I'm not aware of any where it has really definitely been shown. I'm not going to go into details. It's really for specialists in biochemistry, but it's also kind of interesting. This is a list of FDA-approved drugs which have anti-aging activity claims. Just to give you kind of the landscape of this arena and kind of the mode of action of those, 15 molecular agents and their mode of actions, so wherever that might be. A story which I find very interesting, I don't know if you, I'm sure many of you probably know about it since you're in the field. The Nobel Prize for Medicine was awarded a couple of years ago to Shinya Yamanaka, who discovered the 4 Yamanaka factors. And they are very interesting, so they have peculiar names here, and those 4 factors, and it's amazing that it's only 4, senescent cells can be kind of transduced in stem cells, so juvenile cells. That's kind of a reprogramming. And so there's a lot of research going on, and there's also a company which I find interesting. It's called Altos in the United States, which are kind of, I think they have most of the patents, and they're kind of playing around with those four Yamanaka factors, and I find it from a scientific point very interesting what they are doing. I'm going to stop now. So just last point. So this is the strategy of our university. We started with this strategy, I think, 10 years ago or so. And what you see here is the roof. So we have a number of kind of disciplines here, and oncology and so on. But what all our disciplines are focusing on, and we believe this is kind of the future of medicine, is integrative preventive medicine. So this new phase we're witnessing. You can see similar statements from other universities, university hospitals, and so forth. And what we are about to start right now is the so-called Vienna Prevention Program. It's more or less a cohort study employing modern technology for early diagnosis and lifestyle prevention, which will be similar to the studies I have shown you just for the city of Vienna. These are two books I find interesting, if you don't know them. Eric Topol, Super Ages, and if you want to know more about the biochemical basis of immortality, the dream of immortality, Renée Schröder, she's an expert in RNA biology. She was working in Vienna for a long time, is now retired. It's in German, The Dream of Immortality. Thank you very much.